Right now, somewhere in your house, there's a tiny room, a door that locks, a fan that hides every sound, a seat designed for exactly one private moment a day. You walk in, you close the door, you sit down, and for those few minutes, you are completely, totally alone. Now imagine this. For 300,000 years, every single human who ever lived did this exact thing in front of other people, out in the open, in daylight, while someone walked by, while the whole tribe watched. No shame, no hiding, no door to close. And here is the part that should genuinely shock you. The position your ancestors used, every single time, for 300,000 years, is now being sold back to you as a $30 plastic stool. Because doctors think modern toilets might be quietly hurting your body. So what exactly did ancient humans do that we walked away from? And why are doctors starting to say we may have gotten this completely backwards? Part 1. The Open Age. For nearly 300,000 years, there was no such thing as a bathroom. Not a primitive one. Not a hole in the ground. Nothing. Hunter-gatherer groups lived in small bands, constantly moving, constantly visible to each other. And when nature called, there was no separate place to go. Anthropologists studying modern foraging societies, like the Hadza of Tanzania, found something surprising. There was a system. Not written down, not spoken about, but followed by everyone. People moved a short distance from camp, always in the same general direction, always away from the water source, always away from where food was prepared. This was not modesty. This was something far more practical. Early humans, without knowing the science behind it, had figured out the basic rule of sanitation. Keep waste away from drinking water. Keep waste away from food. And because groups were small and always moving, the waste was left behind. The land absorbed it. Insects and rain broke it down. By the time the group returned to that area, months or years later, it was gone. There was no buildup, no contamination, no disease cycle. The system worked, not because it was advanced, but because it was small, mobile, and constantly resetting. Part 2. The position nobody talks about. Here is something almost nobody knows. For 300,000 years, every single human being on Earth relieved themselves in the same basic position: squatting. Not sitting, squatting. There was no toilet to sit on, so the body did what came naturally: a deep squat, knees bent, hips low. And here is where it gets interesting. In the last few decades, researchers studying human anatomy have found that this position is not just cultural, it is mechanical. When the body is in a deep squat, a muscle called the puborectalis relaxes completely. This muscle wraps around part of the digestive tract, and when you sit upright, as on a modern toilet, this muscle stays partially tightened. It creates a kink, like a bent garden hose. In a squat, that kink straightens out completely. Studies comparing the two positions found that squatting required less strain and led to more complete elimination than sitting. For 300,000 years, every human on Earth used the position that modern medicine is now calling the more efficient one. And then, we built a piece of furniture that changed it. Part 3. The 3 that changed everything. The flush toilet, as most people picture it, is barely 200 years old. Indoor plumbing, a seated position, privacy behind a locked door. It is one of the most celebrated inventions in modern history, and for good reason. Before sewage systems, cities were dangerous places. Waste in streets, waste in rivers, the same water people drank from. In the 1800s, cholera outbreaks killed tens of thousands of people in cities across Europe and America because human waste was contaminating drinking water. The flush toilet, combined with sewage systems, is one of the single greatest public health achievements in human history. It is estimated to have added decades to average human lifespan. But here is the twist nobody talks about. In solving one massive problem at a civilization scale, we may have quietly created a smaller one at an individual scale. The seated position. The one humans had never used for 300,000 years before this. Part 4. What we might have lost. Today, doctors are seeing rising rates of certain digestive issues in countries where seated toilets are standard. Conditions like hemorrhoids and chronic constipation are far less common in populations that still squat. Some researchers point directly to that camped muscle, the one that stays partially closed when you sit, the one that fully opens when you squat. In recent years, a small wave of products has appeared, simple stools designed to be placed in front of a toilet to lift the knees and recreate that ancient squatting angle. Some studies on these stools found they reduced strain and shortened the time people spent in the bathroom. In other words, a multi-billion-dollar industry is now selling people a plastic stool to help their bodies do what they did naturally for 300,000 years for free. The flush toilet gave humanity something extraordinary: clean water, safe cities, longer lives. But somewhere in that trade, we also walked away from a position our bodies were built around. Ancient humans did not have privacy. They did not have plumbing. They did not have a locked door. What they had was a system shaped entirely by the body and the land. A position the body fell into naturally, a location chosen by simple, practical logic, a rhythm that left no trace behind. We solved the biggest problem first: disease, contamination, death on a massive scale. And in solving it, we built something brilliant: clean, private, and safe. But somewhere along the way, we stopped asking whether the position itself was ever the problem. For 300,000 years, the human body did one thing the same way every single time. Then, in the last 200 years, we changed it without ever really deciding to. Maybe the real question is not, what did ancient humans do without bathrooms? Maybe the real question is, what did our bodies know that we have only just started to remember?